Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting for Monday, November 4th, 2019. At 6 o'clock, now 6:07, we're going into executive session to conduct strategy and preparation for negotiations on a contract. And the second part is to consider a purchase, exchange, or lease value of real property. So I would look for a motion to go into executive session, and we will come back in regular session right afterwards.
So moved.
Oh, you're gonna read
I was
that?
going to read it.
Oh, go right ahead, then, please.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, 3, to conduct strategy and preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, and the chair so declares police chief, and Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. Brown land on Tehadawon Road.
Second. Oh. Aye. Chuck? Aye. Cindy?
Aye.
Joe? Aye. We'll be back. Had one roll.
Shush.
Down
Australia,
outside.
back in, I did, Crimson Travel, those trips to Canada. And how it happened, the ads were on TV, and I said, I want to go on, I'll go to Disneyland, and my parents jokingly said, okay, you set
Good
them
evening.
up,
Welcome
we'll
back to the Board of Selectmen meeting Monday, November 4th,
8 years old, come on the
2019.
phone.
We're just done with executive session. Our agenda for the rest of the night is organization, pledge of allegiance, and the reading of the mail. 6:35, or we're past that now. Department board updates, informational session for the fiscal year 2020 property tax rate classification hearing, and B, Tread Committee appointment. 7:15, public input, members' input updates, and A, use of snow and ice funding. 7:30, sometime around there, the application for change of manager for an all-alcoholic beverage license for Anthony's Coal Fired Pizza of Littleton and Constitution Ave in Littleton, followed by a lease agreement with the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Post 6556. Number 7 is letter from the town of Newton, Housing Choice Initiatives, proposed state legislation relating to 2/3 local legislative majority to amend town zoning. 8, review of the board selectmen's policies, meetings, set a date and time. And the last part, the town administrator, and anything that she might have, followed by approval of minutes. Now, Nina, we have a full packet of mail this week.
Yes. We certainly do.
Oh, yeah. Cindy, you want to lead us in pledge of allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll just try to go down the list of mail. We received a letter from the Massachusetts Historical Commission outlining their opinion that 12 Robinson Road would be eligible for listing in the National Historic Register of Places. A letter from the City of Framingham, which requests that the town vote for Framingham as the Metro West representative. In our region, there's only one town on the ballot, that is Acton, so we could choose to vote or not. And just at the end, if anyone wishes to vote, perhaps we could discuss that. Notice from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission regarding an order granting an extension of time to Pepperell Hydroelectric Project number 12721 for upstream fish passage plans. Advertisement for electrical and telecommunication apprenticeships available through Local 103 IBEW. A letter from the Department of Conservation and Recreation regarding their Forest Legacy Program. Having called the DCR office, this is an opportunity for the town's input on whether or not it wishes to become fully a part of the Forest Legacy Program. If you look at the monitor, you look at the monitor, the town of Littleton, it's not very large in the picture that I've cut out here, but the town of Littleton in the shaded area, in other words, the northwest area, is currently in the Forest Legacy program, but the other portions are not. I'm told by DCR that the final decision is by the U.S. Forestry Service on whether or not the Forest Legacy area expands, but this is an opportunity if the board wishes to input its support or not support on the subject. What it would do if it does become a Forest Legacy area, for the rest of Littleton, it would open up funding presumably for those residents who may wish to sell their land to that program. It's only for private land, not for public land.
Through grants.
Yeah.
So this is something we should be acting on tonight if,
It's up to the board. I mean, it's something we could certainly put on a future agenda if the board is interested in acting on it, if the,
I don't see any problem in it.
No, I don't know if there's any other implications that aren't referenced in that letter, whether it's, obligates the town to do anything annually, whether there's any regulatory impact, or who knows what. I mean, I'd like to hear more about it.
so does the board want to elect someone to look into it further? Does the board want me to look into it further?
I think we just act on it. There's no, you think there's any,
Who knows?
okay.
I don't know. What's the harm of doing one more step of it, looking into it?
I think you're just the guy to do it.
All right, fine, remind me on that. I'll pull that one out of the waste paper pile and revisit it. Yeah, I'll at least call some of the towns that have participated
Yeah,
and see
I'd
it.
like to know a little bit more about it.
Sorry,
Any
man.
more chores for me there, Jack?
Stand by.
I believe there's two other pieces, three maybe. And then there was one that came in very last minute today. The next is a letter to the Council on Aging from Minuteman Senior Services on their fiscal 19 service report. The report provides that they've provided service to over 990 residents in Littleton in fiscal 19, having a value, according to them, at just over $1 million. Then the next is a notice from the Town of Ayers Zoning Board regarding a variance for the construction of a single-family home on Joyce Lane. I assume Joyce Lane, it borders the town somewhere along the way.
I couldn't find it.
Maybe it's
John Chestnut?
in Ayer.
It's an air, so it's not Chestnut, that would be Harvard.
And I looked it up in the air map and Joyce Lane doesn't even show up.
Perhaps it's a road that hasn't been built yet.
Paper Road?
Yeah, could be. Probably is.
Oh, you know, it might be the Fletcher Hill, the backside of Fletcher Hill, but they're starting to do some clearing up there. The streets there. Perhaps, well, I guess.
Isn't it Pingree Hill?
Maybe it's further down, isn't it? And Fletcher had his ski jump up there.
It's a long time ago.
Then the last one that's in the packet is a letter from the Boston Region Metropolitan Planning Organization regarding the town's contact information, significant milestones in this year's TIPS development process, and the date and time of TIP conference calls. Finally, this afternoon, we received a letter from the Department of Housing and Economic Development that indicated that the MassWorks grant application submitted by LELWD was not going to be recommended for funding at this time, unfortunately. I did send that out by email late this afternoon, minutes probably before this meeting, so.
Can I jump in? Sure. So the Framingham, the mayor of Framingham, first mayor of Framingham, recommending that we nominate her for.
That seat on the MPO,
Yeah,
yeah?
MPO. I don't see any problem with that, actually. If it's not gonna affect our Acton nominee, I think it's worthwhile, because Thatcher Kesey, the old executive director from Devon's, who's always a friend to Littleton, is the COO in Framingham, so there might be some benefit from having that connectivity. So if as long as there's no impact to our nomination of the Acton representative,
There is not,
Yeah,
based
I'd
on the way I'm reading this
I'd
form.
recommend that we.
And we would need to
endorse.
act on that tonight if we were interested to do so, because it's due by tomorrow. And you have the option to vote in 4 categories. The town of either Ashland or the town of Framingham, in this case, for Metro West. The town of Acton for Minuteman, which is obviously ours. For the Inner Core Committee, Somerville is listed on the ballot. And for the South Shore Coalition, Rockland is listed on the ballot. You can certainly vote for some and not all. I'm sure you can do that. If you do vote for one, I would recommend we probably vote for the Minuteman one.
So do you need to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we place our absentee ballot, or town administrator on our behalf, for the Metro West Region Collaborative, the Framingham representative, Yvonne Spicer, mayor, and for the Minuteman Advisory Group on interlocal coordination, that we vote for the Acton representative, Joan Gardner, who's the chair of the select board in Acton.
Second.
Motion been made and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now, there was something in there from Needham as well, right?
Yes, that's on the agenda as an agenda item.
Okay, all right, I got confused, sorry.
No problem.
So we're all done with the mail, right?
You're gonna do the why not on the.
So we're going to turn it over to Steve for the
forestry thing? Okay.
informational, the once a year.
Just, while Steve's getting set up, that Minuteman, the report, there's some pretty good data in there, so that's part of our packet, so folks are interested in finding out what Minuteman provides for senior services for our town. There's some good stuff in there. Impacts a lot of our residents. Now we get some exciting stuff.
Take it away.
How's that?
Yep.
Well, good evening. This is our once-a-year information session. Get ready for the classification hearing that we're going to have in 2 weeks. This is kind of unusual that we have the same board here. This is probably the, I don't know, 5th time or so that this board's been together, at least 4 times that the board's been together with us. So you've heard it before, but it's good to hear it again because you only hear it once a year. Just a little refresher.
Once is fine. Once a year is fine.
This is the last time
That
you'll be
was-
hearing it from me.
And
so
I
put it
think
out
that was
there.
Steve's way of saying, you should all know this by now, no questions, please.
So we look at the 17 surrounding communities to Littleton within a 10-mile radius, so it's 18 total, including Littleton. And we look at some of the tax data that we have for FY19. For the residential tax rate, we've been slightly above the median for a little while now. This variance is $1 right now for FY19. We're at $18.24, 7th out of the communities. The median is $17.24. So we're 5.8% above on the tax rate. That's one component of what we'll be looking at. Single-family values, which is the other big piece of the equation, is value. We've been traditionally below the median. And we'll see some graphs later on about how the values in town are trending. But through last year, the median value for the 18 communities was $454,000. We're at $435,000, 11th out of the 18 communities, 4.23% below the median. Most important thing is the average single-family tax bill, and we've been consistently below the median of the 18 communities. We're 10th out of the 18 communities, 7,940 in FY19. The median is 8,120, we're 2.2% below. You can see that little gap between the median and Littleton. Littleton's in the bars, the blue bars. It's getting a little smaller.
tighter.
So family tax bill has been inching up a little closer to the median in the past couple of years.
Can we blame the realtors?
Excluded debt, and we'll talk a lot more about this. We'll talk a lot more about this in a minute. But excluded debt is trending right now below the median of the communities. We were traditionally above it up through 2000 and FY '17, basically, when we started using the debt exclusion stabilization account, pegging those monies in the future for what that debt service will be. And you can see that that has brought us down below the median. We're 16.67% below the median value. Okay? FY '20's levy breakdown. Just the straight calculations on how this works. Last year's levy limit was 38,069,000. We have the 2.5% increase of 951,000. New growth was strong again this year, not as strong as in previous years, but still strong at 1.1 million. That brings our levy limit to 40,158,000. We add in the excluded debt that we saw on the previous screen, so $1.3 million for our total tax levy of 41,494,000. And that $1,335,000 is being brought down by the $295,000 we're taking out of the debt exclusion stabilization. So that number would have been 1.6 per thousand. Okay. Graphically, here's what the excluded debt looks like. The bars in the background, the brownish orangey bars, is what the debt would have been, and the blue is what we're actually excluding. So you can see for FY '20 is the 1.6 million, and we're paying out, or raising 1.3 million in the tax levy. We're saving the resident 14 cents this year off the single tax rate by doing that. And you can see the projections moving forward. The selectmen last year chose not to fund any additional monies to the debt exclusion stabilization account, so we're still pegged at that FY '25 number. We have enough sitting in there right now to make this happen, what you're looking at. I kind of would suggest that we take another look at extending this out. If you're trying to hit FY '26 at some point. But it takes a commitment, because we can't have one board that makes that commitment and then another board change their mind, because then we're playing with the tax rate and inflating it artificially. Okay, so we can talk about more of that in the budget process for this year. Property values for FY '20. FY '20 was a non-reval year. We still had a very healthy increase in total property values, up 7.03%, broken out into two different categories. Existing property went up 4.27%, and new growth accounted for 2.76% of that increase. And FY '21, so next year is a full reval year. It's every 5 years. The last one was in FY '16. Property values for FY '20. For FY '20, the town actually went over $2 billion in total value. We're at $2,060,000,000. So it was a big jump. We jumped $135 million this past year in total value. That's that 7.03% we just talked about. And you can see the trend. So the blue is residential values. That orangey brown color is the commercial and industrial. And the little gray at the bottom is personal property. Personal property stays pretty flat. What depreciates off, we usually get back in new growth for the year. Commercial is seen, like we all know, commercial saw a little bit of growth with the point coming in 16, 17, 18. We even took some in 19, and there was a little piece in 20, wasn't there, Kathy, for the
Point.
for the point?
Yeah, just the rock.
Just a
climbing.
little, the rock climbing.
facility.
Right. But you can see the trend line on the residential. If we were to just draw a line straight there, you can see that curve and how much it's increased over the time. So just keep that in mind, what that trend is gonna look like, because we'll talk about that a little later. For FY '20, residential is 77.96% of the total value. That's up slightly from last year. And commercial and industrial make up the difference with personal property. Okay? Just stop me at any time for anything. There's a little better breakdown of what happened with property values coming to that $135 million. You can see residential was 106 million of that, or 78.52% of the total value increase. And commercial, industrial, and personal property was 21%. So because we were at 77.92% residential last year, and we increased it by 78% this year, that little value is gonna go up. So you can see the FY '20, we're up to 77.96. So went up 4 basis points with that increase. But remember that trend line, what that could look like going to the future. We topped out in FY '15, you can see it's 79.68%, and then the points started to come on, 16, 17, 18 is when we really fully realized a lot of the points value up there. And since then, residential has remained strong. It was strong through this whole period, but it was offset by the commercial. But now the strength of residential is starting to push that up again. Total property value changes. The blue is the existing value, and that orangey brown is new growth. If we were to look at FY '12 through FY '17, the average for existing values, even with that big increase in FY '16, averaged $2.1 million decrease during that period. And that was resulting from the recession that we had back in '08, so '07 and '08. It takes time for that to flow through to residential values. So it was about 5 years or so before it really hit, and we'll see that in just a little while when we start looking at the single family value, that change. But existing values, you can see for this year, it's up $82.3 million, 4.27. That's a very healthy increase. New growth was 53.1 million in value, 2.76%.
Just want to be clear on the impact on the revenue stream, even when valuations go down, unfortunately, or it doesn't affect the revenue from that property, it just gets a portion differently, right?
Correct.
So, and then new growth is on top of that,
Yes.
right?
The levy is the levy. We're gonna collect the levy. If this property goes up in value, this property goes down, we're still collecting as a town the same thing. The bill to the resident is different, so it is a portion different.
Right.
Okay. And you can see the new growth in FY '17 was strong, FY '19 is strong. '20 came in a little bit less, probably right around the same level as FY '16 was. That trend is gonna probably remain the same. We'll see that in a little while. Residential is still gonna be the main driver of new growth. Here's the property values for the average single-family home. I mentioned residential values have increased. FY '20, we're at $465,000 for the average single-family home. It's up $30,000 from last year, $435,000. If we go back and we look at where we were in '07, we were at 415, and then we went through the recessionary period. So the full impact of that period of time didn't really hit till FY '13, where we bottomed out at $366,000 as a value, so that's a 12% decrease. We made that up and came back up over the 415 last year when we jumped over to the 435, now at 465. You can see it's a 27% increase from that bottom number, that 366, or almost $100,000 in increased value over that period of time. So it took a while for it to go down, but it's really shot up over the last few years, and it's increasing more and more. A lot of that with the single-family home, this is an average now, so as new houses get built, at that increased amount, it's pushing that average up. If you look at the bottom of the screen, the median value, and FY '19 is 414, it still went up 30,000, up to 443. The median value is really a good way to look at what's happening in town, because those new constructions are really impacting that number. It's, okay? But the state goes after the average single-family home, so that's what we show here, is the average. Commercial properties, and this, the assessors like to exclude anything over $2 million or less than 50,000 of this, so they're looking at just the average commercial. I use Cherry Gould's building on King Street as the,
Poster child.
yeah, it's like the average. This is value, 557,000. It's decreased a little to 554 this year. Previous to FY '15, the assessors really didn't change the amount at all, as you can see from the flatness of that chart, but we've tracked it since '15 moving forward. You can see the value increase there. So commercial has increased. Now we get into some of the good stuff. We mentioned values at $2.06 billion. Residential properties make up 1.6 billion of that, or 77.96%. That's the blue pie. And commercial, industrial, and personal property make up 22.04% of that, for that $454 million. So if we were a single tax rate community, the residential piece, taxpayer would be responsible for 77.96% of the levy, or $32.3 million. And the commercial person would be responsible for $9 million worth of the levy. Single tax rate would be $20.13 at that point. Okay. Whereas split rate community, unless the selectmen vote not to split. Some of the rules with the split tax rate, you're taking a portion of the residential, that blue piece of the pie, the residential levy, and we're shifting it up to the commercial piece of the pie. Selectmen vote the shift. They vote the residential factor each year, which controls what that shift is. And we can only shift 50%. We can't shift more than 50% of the commercial piece of the pie. So in other words, CIP levy is 9 million. We can only shift 4.5 million. That's the 50%. So remember when we start talking about the CIP factor for a lot of years at 1.5, that's what that number is. Okay, so that's the max that we can do. So for this example, I used what the selectmen voted last year for the residential shift. Okay, so this is just an example. So with that shift, for this year's data, we'd be moving 8.45% of the total pie out of the residential piece, that blue piece, and it's going to move into the commercial piece. So the shift in this case is 10.833%. So we're taking 10.8% of the blue pie and shifting it up to the commercial taxpayer. So the residential taxpayer would be responsible for 69.51% of the levy, and the commercial taxpayer would be responsible for 30.49%, or $12 million. In this case, with that shift, the residential tax rate would be $17.95. The commercial tax rate would be $27.85. You have examples in your packets of what those different shifts, a sample of 10 of them that we give, but you can go to any factor or any shift that you desire. This is historical, what's been done in the past 2 years in that top line for the residential shift. We basically did the same at the 10.83, and prior to that was the same for 11.03. If you remember a few boards ago, and I think just Chuck was on this board at the time, and Joe, with that 12.42%. We were pushing that 1.5, so we came in at just like 1.47% that year. And what it turns out, that was the absolute wrong timing for that, because then the point came in. And you can see that we came down with those next 2 years. So we gave the residential taxpayer relief for 1 year, but because we had to come down so hard in those next 2 years that followed, the tax rate really took that bite. So instead of being a little, even in that increase, it was a little decrease and then compounded increase after that. So by staying pretty consistent, as the board has done over this past couple of years, it's a little bit more consistent on that increase that we've been seeing. Okay? That next line, the blue line, is the residential percentage of total value. You can remember I
See that climb?
Yep. You can see it went down and now it's trending a little up. But imagine with that other graph, as we saw that increase in the residential values and that trend line going up, you can probably imagine that that 77.96 is going to be increasing as we go along. Okay. CIP factors, these have been kind of all over the place. So we did get a little bit more consistent over the past couple of years, but in 2014, as I mentioned, we really pushed it to 147, and we did hit 150 at one point in time, back in 2007. We asked the assessors to come up with their estimates for new growth for the next few years, and these are just estimates based on outstanding permits and submitted plans through October. Kind of our best guesses right now. You can see new growth in '21 is really the driver here for new growth. It remains strong. There's absolutely no commercial on the horizon that's going to hit in FY '21. In '22, it changes a little.
I mean, like
Residential
commercial
goes
work
down.
hits later, is that the expectation?
Yeah, it's going to hit in '22 and '23. So '22 is plans for the hotel, I believe. And FY '23 were plans for the warehouse that's coming in on Taylor. And again, these are our best guesses right now. Total property value changes, FY '21 is going to be reval year, so even though we're just showing valuation changes of just under 35 million, I can imagine that it could be a little higher for next year. The assessors took a lot of that value change this year. We saw that previously on the chart. I think it was $82 million or so that values went up this year. That was done to kind of smooth it out for next year also. So there's not a huge change. This market is still strong. Remember, values for FY '21 are set January 1st of '20, so it's just in a couple of months. So this has still been a strong real estate market. And Joe, you know, you can attest to that. It's very strong and has remained strong for a while. Based on these estimates, you can see at the bottom, we're going to hit a little over 78% estimate in FY '21. And then with the increased commercial that we saw, it comes back down to around 77% in those outer years. But after that, it's still going to be residential strong after that. Okay. Again, I'd like to offer, in case anybody has any detailed questions that you like, if you'd like to stop by, sit down with Cheryl and I, we can go over this with you and talk about any kind of scenarios else you want to see or presented for the hearing. And then you can go off the chart, what you should.
You had mentioned in the past, though, once you get to 1.5, you maxed out, and then,
Right now, based on, the state has a calculation of what the max shift could be, and right now it's set at 1.5. As you approach it, the numbers may fall in place that it could go up to 175. But it could, we hit that once, that we were allowed to go to 175, but it reversed right out the next year, and we were locked in at 150. What you have to just watch out for is when you're setting this, like right now, we're at, I think we came in at 138 last year, so it was right around that number. As you start to shift more, so if you're thinking of shifting a little bit more this year, off the residential to commercial, and residential remains strong and that piece of the pie expands a little bit more, it's gonna be tough to shift that same amount next year to the commercial piece. You'll be inflating the commercial tax rate. It's at a time where you're asking them to probably pay a betterment for the sewer in the middle of the town and increasing their taxes. If you recall what happened when we shifted up to that 147 that last time, our commercial tax rate almost hit $30 at that point. It was like $29.88 or something like that. That's a lot higher than any other community. I mean, only Air and Maynard have split rates with us, but everybody else's single rate is well below that. So if we're trying to attract businesses, it's kind of tough to justify moving it like that. And you don't want to put yourself in a box where we're forced to do those types of things. So we have some luxury before that happens to try and smooth out that process.
yeah.
But again, any of the factors that you can choose from, and we can model whatever you'd like.
A lot of homework.
Fred's here, in case you want to, and Kathy, if you want to talk to the assessors or anything, what they're seeing.
So the models that you did for us, when you chunked them up for us, the single rate, kind of the same ones that we typically do.
We generally show some of the same ones each year. What you did last year as far as the split, same levy percentage, what are some of the others? Yeah, last commercial
Equal
factor,
dollar, equal
last
percentage.
residential shift, last levy percentage. We show those each year. We also show this, the equal dollar and equal percentage each year also.
That's just to kind of give us some benchmarks.
Right. And the ones that are in between is kind of just, you know, like we did, like, it was 139, 140, 141, 143 as far as the CIP factor. So it's a little sample throughout. So we got to the top there.
But it's good because it gives us a good range within kind of the history of the last few years since that high water mark.
Right.
That's-
And again, on that sheet, is the dollar change from last year's average tax bill. There's the percentage change from the tax bill, and that last column is the percentage change from what you did last year. So if you selected that same shift, it's just the variance from that shift. That's all.
Okay. I think this always gives it the most clarity for the folks in the audience or at home, just to kind of see what the impact, what's it gonna mean to my $450,000 house? What's it gonna mean for, some people wanna know what the rate is gonna be, for whatever reason, so they can compare to the surrounding communities. This shows the full picture. Appreciate it.
We're at 1795 now?
We are at
For residential, yes.
residential, no.
1824?
18,
1824?
and commercial is at 2827. The single rate right now is 2046, and that's going down to 2013. So, because values went up.
All right, I'm looking at our last residential, our current rate under the last residential shift would have reflected a 1795. Just getting it off of your sheet here.
1795.
If we
is-
stay with the 138,319 that we
Right,
did last
yeah.
year, those are the numbers that you end up
Right.
with.
So that would be 20's tax rate if you chose that
Right.
option. So values go up, tax rate goes down. Depending on how the value is apportioned out is whether the person's bill goes up or down.
And the
Not-
combination of increased valuation and increased growth is what's driving that factor down, right? To achieve the same place, a lower rate is because of the growth and the increased valuation.
Because the value is
Value,
really the
yeah,
driver this
yeah.
year. $82 million,
Yeah.
$135 million in total value change.
Yeah, so we can go out and spread the good news that we're awarding a lower rate when all it is a factor of math, right?
Essentially,
Rates
that's
are
what it
relevant.
is.
Huh?
The rates are relevant.
Right, I know, but
Every year we'll see how they raise.
we don't have newspapers here anymore, but every year it'd be the lowest sum would go out and print whatever rate you assessed, like it mattered, like we had a choice in it, but, you know,
But people do look at the rate and
yep.
judge whether they think the tax bill is gonna go up or down. Tax bill is gonna go up,
Period.
basically.
Basically.
Okay?
Okay, thanks.
Great, thank you.
Steve, appreciate all the effort.
Click the other one.
Fred, are you going to make any recommendations this year?
We're gonna break tradition and not make any this year.
We gonna get represented with this information in the
20
next
years.
packet on the 18th? Well, we should, because that's what we're all gonna need to reference, not the slideshow, so much, but the second half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we should have the slides for that too, because we'll be talking off of that.
Okay.
Generally, that's what we end up doing, specific, well, probably all of them, but this will be where we always end up going to.
Okay, Part B, the TRED Committee appointment.
Yes, so at this point, Anita Harding has expressed an interest and willingness to participate on the Taxation Aid Committee. The board's prepared to take up that appointment. We have a draft motion.
Glad to have someone to step up.
How many members are on that, and what's
It's a
the allotted?
five-member.
Yeah, okay. What do we appoint, one a year?
Yeah, it should be one a year because you have the treasurer and another official position. I think it's the chair of the, thank you, Board of Assessors.
Right.
And then 3 resident,
Okay.
appointments. And so they are 3-year terms and they drop, one needs appointment every year because they're,
It's 3-year terms. so
right,
it's rolling.
3-year term, thank
Do
you.
you guys have any input?
And this is mostly just to confirm who's eligible for some of the different programs, right? Is that what this is? Yeah.
This is,
Tweak it?
so there's donation money that is set aside and a small piece of the appropriation was actually put aside this year for the TRED.
Right.
Those residents who have filed an application with Elder and Human Services and are eligible for help with their taxes
Yeah.
get it.
Do you guys do anything to look at other opportunities, kind of like the Sudbury plan? We can't do it because we have a split tax rate. But have you guys ever tried to engage either our legislators or?
We've discussed multiple methods of trying to increase our funding. A large part of it falls under forget what they're called now. Used to be the Council on Aging, or whatever that group is. Most of it's under their purview, and I think, right, we have a new director now this year.
Elder and Human Services.
Correct?
Yep.
But she and I have spoken several times, and I think we'll probably find greater direction in moving forward with finding some additional funding.
There's been extra applications for deferral, tax deferrals, over the past couple of years. So I know that they trying to get the word out for the different programs that they have and the availability.
Just love to try to find a way to certainly get the word out and try to offset as much as we can for our residents, but there are other programs in the state that we're not eligible for because we are a split rate town. But I wonder if there's some way that we could do something else, something.
A lot of
Like the
these,
separate tax.
a lot of these people are eligible for the circuit breaker. So that's one of the things that Elder and Human Services make sure that they apply for that, if they're applying for the TRED money.
Yeah.
So most of them are getting something from the state for that also.
Fuel
So they're
assistance.
trying,
Yeah.
and they're trying to get the word out as best they can.
Yep. Move the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint Miss Anita Harding to the Taxation Aid Committee for a term ending June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
No, it's
Item number
power
4,
distribution.
public input. Anything from the public? Okay, members' input. Cindy?
I just want to remind everybody that the veterans, the Edgar P. Romley Veterans Corner rededication ceremony is this Sunday at 1 PM on Littleton Common. I hope that people will come out and show their support for the veterans and attend this momentous event. There was over 400 names added to the Veterans Corner. The new monuments are in place, the pavers are being installed right now, and it's really an exciting time for our community, honestly. This project's been many years in the making, and it's finally come to fruition, so I hope that people will come out and support the community and the veterans.
Thank you. Well, we're in November, so I just want to throw a reminder out there. We're talking about the potential of some snow on Friday, and Chris is in the back of the room as well. With November 1st comes some limitations on where we can park cars and stay out of the way of those folks that are trying to clear the streets. So if we do have any snow events, I would just tell people to be mindful of what the policies are on your road for parking your car on the street, and just be courteous to the folks that are clearing the streets and the sidewalks. They're not trying to throw snow in your driveway, so don't throw snow at them.
There's no snow coming.
No?
There's no snow. It's going to be sunny and mildly warm, at least till Monday.
Oh,
I
like
like
Cindy's
Cindy's forecast.
that's awesome.
55 degrees is sunny, right?
Exactly.
Ask her what color the sky is in her world.
No snow. Don't even say it.
Need a blizzard. I said that.
Stop.
I started my snowblower, just so it wouldn't snow.
We had a very well-attended town meeting last week, although we always welcome more. Had to, once again, use a secondary room to accommodate the crowd, but a number of programs advanced by different town departments were supported by the town after vigorous debate, so citizen government is alive and well and moving forward in Littleton.
Okay, next part, I have nothing. Use of snow and fund icing.
Do you want me to call it that?
Yeah, which,
You're shrinking away to nothing, Chris. What's going on here?
dude, eat something. Take your kids Halloween candy.
So far.
Really?
Yeah.
Show off.
What, you a tapeworm?
No.
Eat you out of here.
Cheap, I don't eat food, I guess.
I asked that this be put on because we'd kind of got in the habit of using excess snow and ice money to kind of fill in the gaps. And I think with Cheryl here, and with some policies in place, I just wanted to at least revisit it and see that, I know that, not that Chris is pretty humble, as Jim Cloud was before him. These guys do less with more, and anytime they're asked to do something, they do it, and whether or not it's their responsibility, or if they have the money to do it, they find a way to do it and help out all the other departments and just get it done so that the town is a better place. So my thought was, if there is excess money from snow and ice that we don't use, which has been appropriated by town meeting, basically I wanted the first bite at the apple to be if the highway department has any projects, paving, something that they are looking to get done that they just keep pushing off and putting on the back burner. I wanted them to have kind of that opportunity to get a bite at the snow and ice funds, kind of the first bite. And if there's something else that's pressing, I'm sure that Chris is gonna play nice, and if we had to do something else, he's always been willing to be a good team player. So I at least wanted to have the conversation among us to see if that is a possibility. We talk about, people in our charrettes with the master plan and whatnot, make the town more walkable, and we need, the streets need to be paved, and so a lot of those things are very much Chris's goals and his department's goals, and with limited resources, something like this might help him in the department to stay ahead of it.
And it's my understanding that it was actually a policy that was supposed to be taking place that didn't happen, or?
It was put in, yeah, it was put in
So
place
a lot of this is
last fall, October.
my fault. I did not recall. Actually, at this meeting last year, the hearing session, the board approved a change to the financial policy, and FinCom
I didn't bring that up.
approved it right afterwards. And I was sitting right here at the meeting, and it totally escaped me that that happened. So snow and ice can be used for either capital projects, be put into capital stabilization, or go to the roadway fund, the roadway operating budget. And there was another change right below it, to the line right below in that section, that said, even though that we can't decrease the roadway budget from year to year,
This is section
but these
21.
extra
6.
funds are outside of that. So it's not that Chris would get those funds each year. They'd have to be available.
Right.
So that change was made. Totally my fault.
I'm not looking at throw stones or
No,
find blame.
I can take it. Go ahead.
I will, but it suits me.
So the good news is we would be consistent with our already adopted policies to do that. We just need to be mindful to do it.
Correct.
And in any scenario, it would need to go to town meeting
Right.
for the appropriation, but that's all.
Yeah, just say where we're spending.
Right, it's a mechanical thing that
Because
just.
it's already been approved by town meeting to allocate it, it's just being reallocated.
Right.
So it doesn't put 100% there unless the board wants to. You can still allocate
It gives us that
to-
opportunity.
To these little projects that come up in the fall.
Yeah.
And then the remainder could go to roads.
It's also a reminder that the Financial Policy Subcommittee probably ought to meet again sometime soon.
That's actually on our agenda,
Is it? I didn't see that. Where is that?
number 8.
No,
Well,
that's the
that's,
town, the board policies,
Policies with-
Oh, the financial policy piece, oh,
which is part of this.
yeah.
So I'm sorry you're here just for this, but
That's okay.
it was something
It's
that,
not like he was going home for dinner.
No, that's okay. No. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we'd love to have the extra money to be able to pave roads. Even $100 grand would make a huge difference in the long-term quality of roads in town. I think at the May town meeting, when we stood there and answered questions about, well, why aren't we paving these roads?
Right.
It makes sense, but like I said, like Chuck said, if there's something that comes up that's more pressing, police station walls are falling off, and obviously that takes priority, so. But, yeah, I'd love to see an extra, little extra money there, if it's available.
Well, we're coming into budget season, so it's appropriate time to have it on the radar.
Cindy said it's not gonna snow, so
Oh, there'll be a whole bunch left over.
Just saying.
What is the forecast?
We actually haven't gotten our town one yet, so we don't get that until probably Wednesday. Everything we've seen is flip a coin. We have all the plows ready. We have everything's ready if we do snow, does snow.
depends if you look at the US models or the European models.
Well, what'll happen is it's
Literally.
495 is the divider. West of 495 will snow, east of 495 will rain. It's almost, you can almost predict it right down. If it's really close, you'll get way more snow on the west side than the east side.
Speaking of that, you and I have had a conversation about transportation and storms, and is this an appropriate time to just bring it up, just conversationally? Chris has a vehicle when he's in town. He has a Ford Escape, and so he drives his own personal vehicle to and from work. I'm of the opinion that he should have that vehicle, if it's a town vehicle, he's part of the emergency management team, especially when there's a storm. He should have that vehicle available to him to get back and forth safely to do his job. So whether or not this is something we just do during foul weather months, or if we do it 12 months out of the year, that's something I'd like to propose, and I don't know if this is the appropriate venue because it's not agended, but that is something that I'd like to propose to my colleagues.
Yeah, what prevents it from happening right now? I mean, if you just chose to do it, I mean, are you on, is there a regulation that's?
Moral
Told he couldn't.
Okay, well, let's tell him he can, yeah.
I was told but I wasn't told by anybody, a supervisor, I was just,
But there was some kind of policy put in place.
It's a taxable benefit if he takes the car home.
It cost you
Tax.
something.
see if I didn't tell anybody, and just did it.
Ah, well, that's kind of my point.
So, when did we do it? I know that like the former building inspector at one point used the car to go back and forth, and that was changed. And there was discussion then of not doing that. I agree, probably should be able to take it. I just wondered, did we ever set any policy that's written down?
We have a vehicle policy.
We have a vehicle policy.
All right, so whatever it is, myself and one of my colleagues, if you guys want to, when he wants to volunteer, to look into that, find out what we need to do, and, I mean,
As long as he's
Frankly-
willing to take the,
I want to
Extra
fix it so that
income, taxable income.
I don't want to make it a burden on him or have him have to pay more to get a benefit. I want to make it right. I want to make him whole, because this is something that frankly he should have had from the beginning. And so I'm of the opinion that he should, I think the building inspector should have one as well. I mean, it's just, it should be
Well, the building
part of the
inspector's
job
less
regardless.
likely to be
and I
called
don't-
in an emergency situation.
Pardon
The
me?
building commissioner is less likely to be called in. an
Absolutely, yeah, I wouldn't die on the hill for the building inspector, but I mean, I think this is a
emergency. Yeah, no, I
critical-
get it. I think,
critical position.
But I think the benefit that Steve's referring to, isn't that like an IRS policy?
Yes.
There's
Yeah,
only
that's
so much
fine,
we
so
can do
let's,
there.
then we'll
Yeah.
we'll offset it another way. A
I
transportation stipend,
nominate Chuck
whatever
to
we
go
have to call it.
look into it.
Well, we're
work
gonna
on it.
actually be,
Taxable.
we're setting a date to review our policies.
Yeah, go review the
We
policy
can add-
and
we'll
talk to
add
whoever you
that
talk
to
to.
When I do that, okay.
Good work, Paul.
Yes. Well, I just want to see Chris get home early, you know.
Thank you. Can we talk about the grant real quick, since I am sitting here?
Yeah, and if, Mr.
You already
Chairman,
missed
if you're
dinner.
willing, can we jump to
Only because it's kind of under.
9B? Thank you.
Sustainable
Yeah,
materials.
yeah, so this is just the standard.
Sorry, Eric.
Oh, sorry. This is 2 seconds. This is just a grant we get every single year, the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program grant. It's through, Katie does it for us, it's the transfer station grant. I believe it's right around $5,000.
I'm trying to pull up my packet, I left my.
Yeah, I believe it's the same, we get the same amount pretty much every year. It's kind of a plug and chug exercise, and we get it. This is what we bought, the blue recycling containers around the building you've seen, with the logo on it. Different ideas, different things we, recycling wise. We're actually gonna move forward with offering, we've had some people calling us questioning the use of blue transfer station bags and how they're putting plastic bags inside plastic bags. So they actually make a biodegradable plastic bag now, and we're going to buy them with this grant and sell them. It's gonna be an increased price because they are more expensive over the traditional blue transfer station bags we have now, or purple, sorry. But it's gonna give that green alternative if somebody does wanna buy it. It's a really neat product. Katie and I have been looking into it, and we're actually gonna get a sample of them to make sure there's 33-gallon bags, the same size, and just make sure they are rugged enough to hold the stuff. But we're gonna offer that as an option. Probably won't sell them everywhere. It'll be more of one of those, you have to come down to the DPW to get it, or the highway garage, because we don't wanna buy a huge amount if, maybe we just don't wanna have them sit around, so. But we'll end up using this fund to kind of be like an experiment, so. It's a neat it's a neat thing. We get it every year, and we try to do some green stuff with it. It's good environmental stuff, so we just need your approval.
Do we have a motion?
Motion?
Yes.
B.
Yes, B.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize the town administrator to sign the grant agreement for the recycling dividends program funds under the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program offered by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Chris.
Chris.
Travels.
Careful driving.
Application for change of manager, all alcoholic beverage, Anthony's Coal Fired Pizza. Welcome.
Good evening.
How are you?
Hey, you're not leaving us, are you, Eric?
Promoted.
Promoted.
Yeah, so I'll still be around.
Deal. All right.
Yeah. Regional manager for New England. So.
Just not around as much.
No, and a lot more driving,
Yeah.
more podcasts.
Regional manager for New England, huh? Good for you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. So I'll get pays off.
There you go.
I'm patient.
So before the board is a application, obviously, to have a change of manager from Mr. Bush to Ms. Rowland. And I guess the question is whether or not the board has any specific questions relating to Ms. Rowland's experience, background. Perhaps you'd like to say a few words about your experience, speak maybe to your resume a little bit.
Sure. I just recently moved to the Massachusetts area from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There I worked in restaurants that served alcohol previously for around 7 years, and then I worked in some fast casual restaurants as well. I've never worked, I've never had any alcohol violations in my previous full service experience. I am ramp certified.
Got one on you there, Eric.
I know. I know. Wow.
Wow.
I'll do one of those moves tonight.
It's all right. It's all good now. It's all good.
Oh,
It looked the
boy.
other way in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to be here and to really immerse myself in the area and learn more about the community.
Awesome.
And she leaned over during the meeting, she goes, "Are you serious about snow in November?" Yeah. She goes,
Pittsburgh to Littleton, that's,
It's a change, but I'm excited about it.
Pittsburgh to London. That's a change.
Right.
yeah. Well, welcome. Any questions?
Have you had the tips training and
Yeah,
all that?
yeah.
Is that a national thing, or?
Yeah,
It
they
is, yeah.
I've served safe alcohol as well as the tips training.
Yeah.
Yeah, all managers for the company have to have.
Oh, okay. That's all right. There it is. Yeah. All right. And how long have you been at the Littleton facility, or are you there yet?
It's
Littleton
been,
restaurant.
it'll be 4 months.
Okay, yeah, so you're familiar with things now?
Yeah.
Yeah, she trained at that location, and then I took over the regional position on October 1st.
Yeah,
So good.
okay. And,
What do you think about the cornhole beanbags going over the railing? No, I'm kidding.
Or the 30 of them on the roof.
I don't see it here, but I'm sure the police chief's already done his thing.
He's reviewed the application and he has no comment.
Great. No comment. Well, it's a positive. Would-
Yeah, they don't have any, I'll put it this way, I think the chief's email was they don't have any issues with the transfer.
Well, I'd say we've always had a great relationship, even when things are strained, but handled excellent by the folks at Anthony's, and hopefully you'll continue in that fine tradition.
I intend to.
Yeah, I agree, and you guys have always been a great member of the community as well, you know, getting involved with the schools and, you know, different fundraising programs and things like that, so hopefully that'll continue as well, and, yeah, to Paul's point, you know, just even when there was a little bit of a hiccup, the way you guys handled it was stellar.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that.
Yeah, the charity piece is a huge piece of what we do. I'm actually excited to now bring that to some of the other
good.
locations, because we were, to be honest with you, this location was one of the leaders in the company
Okay.
since the day we opened.
Really?
Yeah, we're in the top 5. Last year, we were number 3 in the company as far as just
Give it back.
how many charity events and how much we donated and so on and so forth. That's cool. Donate to donate, you know, you just, I told her, I'm like, give. You show what you give.
It comes back, yeah.
It does. I mean, maybe not right away, but I mean, just
Sure.
goodwill in the long run. It does make a difference.
It was gain.
in the big picture.
Welcome
Thank
to
you.
Littleton.
Thank you.
There's no questions? You just need a motion?
Well, you know that if you work in that store and the Patriots are playing the Steelers, there are some rules that apply.
It's been a challenging transition.
Especially if Big Ben goes down. It was fun to watch Antonio Brown, you know?
Bruins are playing the Penguins tonight.
So as I was explaining, because the Super Bowl is so huge in this company every single year, just how much sales go, and I was like, you know, we do okay up here, not like the Florida stores. I said, like, you know, we've just been in it every year, so I'm not sure what it will be like when we're, so I'll have to worry about that when it happens, so.
You could use a few more seats at that bar. I'd tell you, I'd be all fit in favor of a,
You know what's so funny? They,
Build out into the dry cleaner?
oh, why
about a
not?
year ago, they offered to move the dry cleaner for us.
Really?
Yeah, that would just be, I think, too.
The original design wasn't the bar gonna be on the other side originally, if I recall?
No, the design's correct, but it had a to-go entrance at the end of the bar, like near where the,
Vestibule?
no, the opposite side.
Oh, really?
Oh, there's an entrance over there,
in that
okay.
way.
All right.
And then there was a big, like, sharing table in part of the bar.
Yeah.
But I don't know who made those blueprints, but they weren't,
Didn't work.
the footage wasn't there for any
Yeah.
of that. I mean, it's a tiny place.
Pretty cramped over there
Yeah,
already,
yeah.
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 Patio's been good, though.
Should we ask the audience, Mr. Chairman, whether there's any input?
Any questions from the audience?
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the application of Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza of Littleton LLC DBA Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza of 201 Constitutional Ave, The Point, for a change of manager from Eric Bush to Taylor Rowland for its all-alcoholic restaurant license under Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 12.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Welcome.
Right. Well, good luck, and hope you come around every now and then.
You're not getting rid of me that easy.
Welcome,
Is
Taylor.
this just for the chair?
For everyone, please, yes.
Eric, you guys can come down, Taylor. This will probably be up in the, no?
Well, next week sometime. Diane will be back.
Do you get
No,
the signed
actually,
license?
well, yeah, the sign license probably next week. We're required to mail this in pretty promptly, but sometime next week, towards the end of the week.
Okay, just to come back to pick it up.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
Night.
Good night.
Bye.
He really has done a good job there.
He has, yeah. And there's a number of little Tonians that work there.
Yep.
Oh, nice job. Those are the easy ones.
Item number 6, lease agreement with the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post.
So this, obviously our well-known John Borowski is here today. This is the lease agreement with the VFW, and last year this lease agreement was entered into for a one-year period. The question before the board is whether the board wishes to renew this one-year lease agreement. I understand that it was budgeted for fiscal '20, and it has been proposed for fiscal '21 funding as well. So at this time, I guess the board, if I have any questions for John, or if there are other points of discussion?
Don't have any problem with it. I'm just curious, I kind of lost track of how often the town has decided to use the premises there, John. How often do town boards or outfits get in there? Is it something we need to promote more?
Not the board, but there are some outlets in town, like the Boosters Club, like that. They use it a couple times a month. During this time of year, almost every week when they have a game here in home.
Right.
The day before, they use it for that. They also use it for their own little meetings every now and then too. The other ones, you have the Wilton Business Association uses it for a meeting place. The Friends of Wilton Veterans, of course. The main reason we have it is for the Legion to meet. They meet every month, except for July and August. Teachers had a trivia night there one time this year, so. And also, we had the Active Box Pro boosters come in and just use it. So it's been used.
It's been used for retirement parties and things like that.
Retirement parties, birthday parties, stuff like
For
that.
staff.
Those are, some of them are paid and some are not, but there are some things like that, yes. Because it was a coalition there too, after a funeral type stuff.
But it's a good way to remind folks that that's available.
Right.
Space, yeah.
Yeah. That's a small place to meet.
Yep.
And to have a small party.
Selectmen's meetings. Maybe we should have a selectmen's meeting at the VFW.
There you go.
Accessible, right? It would work, it would cover it.
Which side?
Yes.
Of course, the meeting side.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion? If there's no other questions or
I don't have any questions.
anything from the public?
Your idea, I think, last year.
It was, actually, yep. I think it's worked out well
Yeah.
for the community.
So make the motion.
Oh, I didn't know if there was any questions, so. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the lease agreement with the Littleton Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 6556, Inc. of Massachusetts nonprofit corporation for non-exclusive right of access to the property for the purposes of holding meetings and other events.
Second.
Motion been made and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, John.
And thanks in advance for everything you and Cindy and the whole crew have been doing for what's gonna be a wonderful sunny event on.
Unseasonably
on Sunday.
warm
Right.
event,
Yeah.
Sunday.
Going right along.
Yep.
You need people to help shovel?
John, will you
Really
take
good. I'm
these
sorry?
two, will you take these two for signature by the commander?
I can, yeah.
That'd be helpful. Thank you.
Does it have to be black?
Get them back to you.
Oh, I don't know about that, I don't think that's an issue. Is there any irritated member of the Coast family that wants to do some raking or mowing?
Adam?
Just trying to think, before Thursday night, I wanna deal with it rather than all wet leaves are all perfect right now, you know? Right now?
Okay.
Set.
Yep,
Thank
thanks,
you.
John.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
John.
Thanks, John.
Number 7, a letter from the town of Needham. Nina and I talked about this. Nina can carry it forward. I wanted the board to be able to talk about this because I think there is some probably merit to this. Where the governor has stated a while ago that he'd like to have the zoning change, and it's meant for residential growth, to change the zoning bylaws, so you only need a 50-50, not a 2/3 vote. So if you want to take it further than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've really captured it all. I think the initiative is to reduce zoning, the zoning quorum at town meeting, not the quorum, but the vote requirement at town meeting from 2/3 down to a simple majority. And the town of Needham feels differently and suggests that 2/3 is a really important requirement. And the question is whether or not the board, they are asking that the town of Littleton consider submitting a similar letter to its legislative delegation opposing the 2/3 reduction to majority. And the question is for the board, whether the board feels similarly or if it feels that it would be beneficial to have a reduction in the majority count requirements.
I think 2/3, in my own opinion, 2/3 has worked fine for all these years. We're at that 10%. You know, do you know what we're talking about in this 50%?
I know a little bit about it, yes.
Did the planning board, this was sent to the planning board, right? Has your board talked about it at all?
Not until Thursday night.
I think that's where they, I think we should take our guidance from them.
Oh, I do, that's why, but I wanted our board to at least know about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And have a chance to
At
discuss it.
first blush, I agree with you, but I think the second thought is it makes more sense to let the planning board talk about it and give us a little input, as you suggested, Chuck. Yeah.
So I've heard Governor Baker speak at a couple of events that I've attended regarding this bill and how he feels it's important to create, especially affordable housing in communities without being able to forego the 2/3 voting requirement, just to give towns more opportunity to create the zoning that they need to create the housing that we need for our community, not necessarily for Littleton, but communities, most communities in general. I do agree that I think we should really maybe defer this to the planning board, and I can speak to the Affordable Housing Trust board as well to see if they have any input about it, but I think on its face, it looks one way, but I think it's certainly something that we should maybe dive into a little bit in more detail and take a closer look on it before we make a decision about how we feel as a board about it.
Wasn't my intent to do anything tonight. It was
Yeah,
just-
no.
It was just here for discussion.
No, I'm glad you brought it up, because I've heard it mentioned a couple times, and I know there are different feelings about it, so I think it definitely warrants further discussion.
There's been some conversations around within the MMA as well. There's some groups that have spoken about it for and against. When is it proposed that he's going to try to take action? House Bill 3507?
I don't think anything in here
haven't seen
alluded
it.
to a specific time frame. Certainly, we can find out what's anticipated for that time frame and follow up.
It might be useful to get an opinion from our legislators as to whether or not they think this is something that's even going anywhere, you know?
Good idea, too.
One thing for the governor to propose, but it's not
Right.
going anywhere. If it's, you know, and I don't know one way or the other. Maybe the legislature's all gung-ho, I don't know. But it has to go through there anyway.
Yeah.
So I guess the first thing we'll wait to hear back from the planning board and what.
The Affordable Housing Trust.
Yeah.
I would like to see the legislature do something about 40B. I mean, it's something that barely passed in 1973 or whenever it passed, and we've had to, we being all of the residents in the Commonwealth, have had to bear the burden of Chapter 40B. In some cases, we've had friendly 40Bs, which we've gotten some nice projects, but in many cases, it's been, you know, I hate to use the term, put the gun to our head, you know, it's like, I'm gonna do this by right. I'm speaking, Gino.
No, I know, I don't want to distribute.
There's four people in the room, we see you.
Okay, thank you.
But I think this is like one bite at that apple on behalf of the governor, but I absolutely want to make sure that we hear from planning board. I do appreciate you bringing it up, Joe, because it's been talked about, but never something this formal. Appreciate it. I think there's somebody in the back of the room that wants to speak.
Mr. Fradloni, would you like to speak?
So on me.
Thank you, sir. Your Honorable Selectmen. I spoke with the Governor Charlie Baker on September 14, I already invited,
What's your name?
and we were talking about housing for seniors.
Okay.
Yes?
Name and address.
I'm sorry, 26 Howard Avenue.
That was before the restraining order went into effect, was it?
Well, I thought I was one of the, you know what I mean, 38 years, I would consider myself a little genius person, whatever. But anyway, he said to me, Gino, there is funding for housing because he likes to build housing for the seniors, also affordable. When you people say affordable, you mean for people that already have a home. I'm talking about for people that have a very small pension or social security, they can't afford to live in Littleton, and they lived all their life here, and they worked all their life. But the question is, they have no pension, very little social security. There's like a catch-22. Charlie Baker says, when he saw me, he said, Gino, it's nice to see you. Matter of fact, he even gave me a big hug. The question is, the town has to donate a piece of property for the state to fund housing. It's not like they fund everything, like they used to do 30 years ago. And I'm sure my friend there, the selectman, Paul Glavy,
Yeah.
he knows what I'm talking about. Years ago, the state will buy the land and build the housing. Now, they change it. Since Mike Dukakis, a friend, he said, Gino, we changed it. So now, you have to provide a piece of property, which is so easy to sell it when the town, somebody donate a piece of property to the town, it's easy to sell it and donate it. I understand that. But the question is, there's a lot of seniors here that make less than $1,200 a month, and they ask me, I take them all over the place. Being appointed by the governor, I take them all over the place to find housing. And there is no housing because the town do not donate piece of property. That is the point. And you want it affordable? There's two types of affordable. Because somebody, without mentioning them, because they confide in me, they say, I like to make money, Gino. The question is, affordable housing, one bedroom, $2,400 a month. I wonder if each one of you can afford $2,400 a month. It's like $30,000 a year. I'm talking about people that make very, very little. Social Security. We are lucky, including myself, but I worked all my life. So that's the problem. When you find a piece of property that you're willing to donate, the state will fund you. While Baker's there, I'll just let you know, because he's the one that is really pushing. And he's pushing on the other town too. The question is, every town has their own bylaw, especially with the planning board. They dictate it. So do what you can do, and you will see that people will understand, and they will put you back if you want to stay here as a selectman until you're 150,000 years old. Thank you.
Anything else having to do with this two-thirds? Anna?
Anna Houston, Planning Board. So I had a question about whether this kind of a request from another town is typical, and what has Littleton done in the past with these kind of requests? It seems,
I don't think it's typical that.
Every now
It's
and
happened,
then,
though.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Every now and
not-
then some town gets behind an initiative and they look for support, but it's not.
Looking for us to sign a petition or things like that.
yeah, okay. You were asking about speaking with our representatives. I do know that Senator Eldridge has his own housing bill, so that might be something else to consider.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Sure, please.
Speaking of housing, and I'm glad that Anna's here, this is one thing that I wanted to mention to the board, maybe I should have mentioned it during members' updates, was trying to maybe collaborate more closely or meet more regularly with the planning board, especially in the coming months between now and May, just because we do have so many things going on in town with respect to, not only the sewer project, but also certain housing initiatives. We have the Affordable Housing Trust, we have the Littleton Station Working Group plan that's coming out. I just was thinking that maybe we should consider having joint meetings with the planning board more regularly, just so that we all stay on the same page and the same track going forward. And then possibly bringing in the sewer commissioners and the master plan implementation committee through those meetings at some point. But initially, just really sitting down with the planning board and talking about what's going on and what's before us and what's the best course of action going forward to address or collaboratively move forward with all the projects that we have coming up. We have a lot to do between now and May. So that was just one thought that I had, and then to build on the housing comments, there are some things going on regarding affordable housing. I just think it would be better if maybe we worked a little bit closer with the planning board, especially in the coming months.
I agree.
Thanks.
No, we concur. It would be great, especially because we do have a couple of projects that are going to be running parallel for Springtown meeting. So being able to do outreach or just even have conversations to make sure that all the parties, interested parties are in the know, I think would be very helpful.
So maybe you can connect with Maren and
Yeah, I mean, it would be helpful to me if there were specific,
topics.
yeah, topics, so that, and if someone could indicate, you know, we've got this topic that's come up, we'd like to have a joint meeting, I'm happy to coordinate and schedule it. Alternatively, we could, I suppose, set, you know, I don't wanna say quarterly, but bi-monthly meetings, I don't know, I mean.
Right.
And if the meeting is not necessary, we can always skip over it, but I'm open to suggestions on how we coordinate this so it doesn't fall off the radar. I mean, I would think that if there was something that we needed to discuss, it would naturally occur.
Right.
But if there's something more that the board is looking for, happy to try to build it in.
Right.
Well, let's set a goal of trying to make sure we get one in before the end of the year. Get the holidays coming up quickly, so.
Right. I just
in
think,
December.
right, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Paul. I just think in general, it might be good to have an initial meeting with the planning board, a joint meeting, so we can just talk about it. You know, what's going on with the planning board, what's going on with our board, what is before us, and then we can kind of come up with a course of action from that initial
Identify
meeting.
the issues at that meeting.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect, okay.
One of the comments that was made when we had our retreat back in June was that in years past, there had been a chair of chairs meeting, perhaps, I think it was called, where that enabled the communication between the boards to flow a little bit more. And so I think by getting an initial conversation going, perhaps something like that could evolve. But I do agree that we have a lot in making sure that we that we know who's working on what would be very helpful.
Okay, so certainly something before the end of the calendar year is what I'm hearing, and an opportunity to discuss all of the things that are in play with relating to the Board of Selectmen and Planning Board matters that can be discussed. So a pretty general item to discuss anything that, you know, between the village, the form-based code and
Right,
any other matters.
right.
Yeah, okay.
Just for reference, Anna, too, that chair of chairs, that was a number of years ago, and it started off as a fantastic way of communication, but it turned into something that suddenly was coming back and saying, we want this, we want that, and it was selectmen business they were talking about, so I don't think that committee lasted a whole year.
Got it.
I mean, the intention was fantastic, but.
Yeah.
But
We only wanna do that,
various
which is good.
forums for exchanging information have been attempted, and they have a tendency to fall apart of their own weight, but doesn't mean we shouldn't try it again.
Right.
But,
Okay, item number 9, town administrator.
8, well, what about we're gonna set a date, 8, didn't we have 8?
Oh, for
Let's
the
do that.
policies.
So,
Oh, did I miss it?
the 13th was discussed, and I think, Paul, you said that the 13th would be best, but you weren't uncertain at that time. Chuck, you said you're not 100% certain because you may have some travel. I don't think I heard any other comments with conflicts. But is there a date, time that we can set at this point?
13th still looks pretty good, but are we gonna be getting information in advance? If we're gonna show up, I wanna,
Yeah, no, I'm gonna send that out to the board.
okay.
Yeah, I
'Cause
have
we
it
had-
down as the 13th.
We had narrowed down the scope of what we wanted to discuss, so I'll distribute that to the board.
And what time?
I think we had talked about 6 or 6:30 at one point.
Okay.
So I think 6:30 probably makes it best for everyone.
Yeah.
So let's do 6:30. Doesn't make, I don't know, maybe that
That's
doesn't make
fine.
it best for everyone. So 11:13 at 6:30 PM, and we're gonna be at the fire station. Unless you wanna go to the VFW,
Oh.
on the other side.
Which other side?
the side that doesn't have the fun stuff.
It's a short walk.
Okay, item 9 this time.
We've already done B, so at this point, there's a number of administrative things for housekeeping. The policies, which is something we may wish to consider at our policies meeting, is that the board requires that all grants be signed off by the Board of Selectmen. So, there's no dollar value, whereas the Board of Selectmen has authorized contracts up to $50,000 to be signed by the town administrator, so I only bring things beyond $50,000. Obviously, I'm not gonna sign a contract that we're not on the same page on, but nevertheless, all grants in any amount are required to come before the Board of Selectmen, so that's why you see B and C on this list. A is another thing that I would consider asking the board to modify in future years. The warrant for the capital items relating to space needs specified that it would be expended by the Board of Selectmen. Maybe it's something that we could change in the future, that it just be general and that I could actually do the expenditure and not have to bring the invoice here for approval. But I'm seeking approval to process a space needs invoice. And then for C, the signing of the Cultural Council grant. And then finally, there's this is more of a formality again than anything, but the Cultural Council, certain members have submitted a disclosure form, and those are supposed to be filed with the appointing authority technically, and by including it in the packet, it's being filed, but a motion wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, I would think on those, it should be more informational. I don't know, vote on somebody.
It's up to the board. You don't have to vote on them.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on it?
I do have one item that's outside of this list that came to my mind today. It's not gonna require voting, but at the September 9th meeting, we discussed the building commissioner job and the actual advertisement of that, and we discussed the assistant town administrator screening process. It was alluded to at that time that Chuck and Cindy were working on that, obviously, job, and the three of us had been meeting on that subject. But I don't, in reviewing the tape, I didn't see, acknowledgement or a specific agreement that Chuck and Cindy would be on the interview team. I'm assuming that was what was intended, but I just wanted to bring it back, just to ask if that was the intent.
That's how I remember it.
Yeah, and I don't know that it was specifically stated, but I think that was the intent.
So if the
Yeah, I
board's
agree.
comfortable, I'm just gonna take that as,
Okay.
Yeah, Nina and I talked about this today, and I do the exact same thing. I just thought it was implied,
Yeah.
we just thought it's gonna be that way.
Okay,
I just wanna make sure, because we're probably at that point where we're ready to start planning that out,
okay,
beginning the process.
all right.
So going back to perhaps A and C, if the board doesn't want to vote D, because again, you don't need to, but I do need votes on A and C at this time.
Any more discussion, or?
Fine.
I think we're all set with it.
All set? Move that the Board of Selectmen approve the space needs invoice. Move the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize the town administrator to expend funds relating to Article 8, 8B, town building space needs from the May 7th, 2018 annual town meeting, and Article 8, 7B, town building space needs from May 6th, 2019 annual town meeting.
Second.
And for discussion, this is actually, the way I've worded this is so general that you would authorize me to vote, to expend from this account for any invoice that comes forward. If you wanted to make it specific, you might add the invoice number or the amount that is before you. That's up to the board.
I don't think that's necessary.
I'm fine with the way it's worded.
Same.
Motion's been made and second. All those in favor?
Aye. And then you said C?
Yes,
Nina?
please.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize the town administrator to sign the grant agreement for the fiscal year 2020 local cultural council funds from the Mass Cultural Council.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? So that's it for 9?
Yes,
So we just have minutes?
yes.
Johnson with dinner, so I'm gonna have to.
Let's see, in the absence of Chuck, I'll move.
You did it too.
Hmm?
Chase.
Chuck,
I did it
right,
too.
yeah, right, my brain went.
I keep doing that, so.
A lot of people confuse us.
I will move that the board,
It's the wavy hair, I think.
move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the meeting minutes of October 1st and October 7th, 2019, as presented.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Cheryl, is there anything you want to speak on?
I don't think so.
Okay, just want to make sure you,
John Q. Public, you got anything to add?
Mike, sing a
tonight?
song? You good?
Motion to adjourn?
That's at the VFW. Second.
motion been made, seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for watching.
Thanks, folks. Thank you.